We welcome you to the Lunch and Learn today called Moving from Paper to Digital. We're here today due to popular request. ARIE is offering a series of these Lunch and Learns to help you manage your facilities better, stronger, faster. Are you still operating with paper information? Does your facility maintenance team still use physical drawings to troubleshoot? Today, we're going to discuss how and why you should move away from paper and make the transition to digital information. Lori is our speaker again this month, and she has a background in facility management and facility construction. She started ARIE Engineering in 1998, and over the years has helped many archive rooms transition to digital. A few housekeeping comments. Please submit questions through the session using the chat, and we will try to answer those at the end. If we don't get to your question, I will personally reach out after the session and answer it. As always, we're just so excited that you continue the conversation with you after the session. Just send me an email or give me a call. And with that, Lori, I'll hand it over to you.
Great, thanks, Barb. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, we're talking about going from digital to paper, but with any project, I always like to start with what is our goal? To determine our goal, let's start with a couple of definitions. First, what is data? Data is the raw, unorganized facts. Think about data as all the details that's on your drawings. It's the information you need to build your building, right? Now, information, in contrast, is when that data has been organized and structured in a way to make it useful and easy to digest. So information helps us make better decisions. I feel it's important to share information with anyone who needs to do their job. And I just love this quote: information has more value the more it is shared. So I would like to propose a goal that we all strive to be rich in information rather than buried in data. I think everyone will agree they don't want to be buried in all those drawings. Okay, so today's topic, we're talking about going digital, digital world. Does it seem like to you, everyone around you is on a digital device? Are they on their phone, their laptops, their tablets? Are you the only person in the meeting that shows up with pen and paper? And maybe you're feeling pressure, whether it's from above or even from your subordinates, to jump on the technology bandwagon. And it may feel overwhelming if you think about transition from paper to digital. So if that's you, if you answered yes to any of these things, then this Lunch and Learn session is going to be helpful. Today, we're going to talk about the pitfalls of paper. We're going to talk about maybe some tips for justifying going from paper to digital. And then finally, I'm going to give you some steps on how to do it. Right. Looks like I had a duplicate. There we go. Paper. So we all are comfortable with paper. I think, you know, we have a lot of paper around us. I know people that still love to read a paper book versus reading a book on their Kindle. And you may even be thinking to yourself, what's the big deal? Why can't I stay with paper? Paper works for me. Well, let's talk about some of the risk. As we noted in our last Lunch and Learn, paper has a lot of downsides. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this topic just because we went over it in detail last Lunch and Learn session, but I like to elaborate on a couple of these key risks and ways for you to consider justifying moving to digital. First, space. Space is kind of an obvious way that paper has a downside. Facility drawings are large and they're clunky, they're hard to store. I could show you dozens of pictures like this, or even worse. We've seen so many archives rooms, it's just paper everywhere. This is one of our clients that had a hospital client that used a bathroom to store all their paper. So what does space cost you? Well, that's going to vary. For hospitals, there's a range, $200 to $600 per square foot. Hospitals can be complicated, right? Schools have a little bit narrower range, $300 to $400 roughly per square foot, and universities, you know, their range is pretty wide as well. So not only the cost of your space, you have to think about that yourself, but large format filing cabinets are pretty expensive. You know, they run around $2,000 for one of those cabinets, and they hold around 2,000 sheets. And that's if you pack them really full. Most of our clients have way more than 2,000 sheets. And then think about relative to space, how would you use your archives room better? What would you use it for? How could you repurpose it? So space is a significant component to justifying going digital. But another one is paper. Paper gets damaged. It's vulnerable. It's vulnerable to tears, to water leaks. $300. That's probably the cost to have a scanning vendor repair a drawing that comes in looking like this. $1,500. That's about the average cost to redraw it, and that's if you have all the content available. $5,000 is what an architect told me. This was years ago, probably 6, 8 years ago. They add $5,000 to every project just for the sole thing of finding drawings or recreating missing information. Every project. Think about how many projects you do. If you took $5,000 from each project, you could easily pay for your digital conversion. And then, what's it worth to you to know that all your valuable information is safe and backed up? So there's a pretty high cost to this information getting lost or damaged. We had one university several years ago call us almost in a panic because they came in on Monday. There had been a lot of rain over the weekend. They found out they had a roof leak upstairs in the mezzanine area where they had all their drawings. They lost hundreds of drawings. And when water gets on this paper, this blue ink just disappears. So they don't even know what they lost. They just lost a whole lot of documents. So another thing to consider with paper is it's difficult to share. $15 a sheet is kind of an average cost you might pay to copy a drawing. $50 an hour, that's maybe how much time you spend looking for a document, running to the scanning vendor, getting a copy made. Large format copiers are not easy to find. We have one school district who told us they could easily justify not only going to digital, but going fully into AerieHub, our software, with about 6 months of their time running back and forth to the scanning vendor to get copies made. And then large format copiers are expensive. I put 10,000, but it could be a little bit less and it could be a lot more. It just depends on what the quality is and how modern your technology. And then, this is kind of a sad story, but when you need to share information quickly, it's when something bad happens. We met with a facility manager a few years ago, and he happened to be the facility maintenance manager at a school district in South Carolina that had an active shooter. And in that incident, a 5-year-old boy died. He told us that when he got the phone call that this was happening, he rushed back to the maintenance department, quickly found the floor plan drawing for that elementary school, drove quickly to the scene. And when he got there with that one drawing, 5 people needed it at the same time. It just broke his heart that he couldn't get that information to the first responders quickly. Who knows if that little boy would have lived if they had the information. But you need to realize, as facility managers, it is part of your responsibility to keep people safe. And having access to this key information during an emergency is critical to risk management. I put this security slide in here because this picture on the left is one I took a few years ago. It reminds me of a story. A hospital facility manager left one afternoon to go home, and as he was leaving the parking lot, he glanced and saw all these drawings by the curb, ready to be picked up by the trash company. And he was kind of surprised. He walked over and looked at it, and these are his current facility drawings. He was shocked. He got some help and took about an hour to move all of them back inside. What had happened is a contractor was told they needed to clean out an area to get ready for a project. Contractor just didn't even think about this information being not only sensitive, secure information, but critical for the operation of this facility. So imagine if that facility manager had left at lunchtime that day or had a meeting off site and didn't come back in and see all that. He would have not only lost all the information, but now it would have been a security breach. So you just really need to be thinking about how you're going to manage security, and paper has its own unique challenges when it comes to that. Revision tracking. You know, how are you going to find different versions of a drawing in this mess, and which version is the most pertinent? You know, to risk sounding all doom and gloom, there was another story in a hospital. One of our clients, a maintenance tech, needed to do a plumbing repair, and he found the drawing that he needed for his plumbing repair, cut into the wall and severed an oxygen line. And a man was on the operating table and went without oxygen for 7 minutes and suffered permanent brain damage. How horrible that is for everyone involved. And there was a newer version of that drawing in another drawer. And this maintenance tech didn't know to look in another drawer. You know, it's hard to blame that person for not knowing the information was somewhere else. So keeping up with your changes, keeping up with revisions, that is so important. And it goes back to risk management and the cost of life. So just to reiterate, some of the main pitfalls of paper: space, time and money, your resources. How much do you spend looking for information, running to the copier, the scanning vendor to make duplicates to send to architects? The risk of losing the information, the risk of not finding what you need in an emergency, and then keeping your people safe, whether it's the inhabitants of your building or it's your own people. All right, so those are some of the pitfalls. Now let's move on to something a little bit happier. Let's talk about some solutions. You may be thinking to yourself, well, I just need to take all this paper and convert it to digital and my problem is solved. We get that a lot. People say that a lot. Well, we just need to scan everything. And you're right, scanning is an important step of the solution. But let's take a closer look. You scan everything, you're going to end up with a lot of files. So let's walk through some steps. So our goal is to go from what you see on the left, the messy paper, which is I'm calling data, over to something more organized. And I'm showing you a screenshot of our software, AerieHub. So there are actually 3 main steps. First, we want to organize the information. Second, we need to digitize it. It needs to be scanned. And the third component is let's make it accessible. Let's talk about each of these steps. Organize. This is probably the most overlooked step. And without it, you will struggle with any system you try and put in place. You know the old saying, junk in, junk out. So I want you to imagine you have a garage. Let's think about you have a ton of stuff in there. Maybe your kids didn't put things back the way they needed to. And your spouse says, hey, honey, it's time to clean up the garage. So you think, great, I need to get my garage organized. So you talk to this company that says, oh man, we could build you this custom storage. It'll be awesome. We'll label everything. It's going to be amazing. Well, if you don't take the time to go through all that junk first and get rid of stuff you don't need. I mean, you may have 5 drill motors, 3 of them are corded. You never use corded drill motors anymore. You need to get rid of some of that stuff. So if you don't take the time first to get rid of all the things that you don't need and you won't use, your new garage is going to end up looking something like this, and you're still not going to be able to find anything. So organizing, you really need to put some time and effort into this step. We spent a lot of time talking about organizing in the last Lunch and Learn. So I gave you many tips on how to do that. But you need to organize with your drawings and technical documents, just like you need to with that garage. You need to get rid of duplicates. You need to weed out design documents. No one cares about what you were thinking about building. You need to look for the as-built or the latest construction set or the red line. You don't want a scanning vendor to come in or your own people to scan duplicates. You don't want them to scan things that don't matter to you. So organize. Organizing takes space, it takes time, it takes people, but you've got to do it. You got to weed out duplicates. When you reorganize your sets, you're going to learn what's missing. And the other thing you can keep in mind, you don't have to do all that yourself. You can outsource organizing. There are companies that do that for you. Make sure they're good companies. They know what they're doing. That's one of the services Area Engineering offers. We've been doing it for so long. We help you organize your archives. So that's the first step, is organizing. Okay. Step 2, let's talk about scanning, digitizing. You really have 2 primary approaches when it comes to digitizing. 1, do it yourself, in-house. 2, send it out. All right, when you scan in-house, that is a doable option, but it has its risk. To scan something in-house, you need 3 things. First, you need equipment. Scanners, large format scanners, are not cheap. They're expensive. And the thing to keep in mind is that technology is always improving with large format scanners, or with anything, but it's always improving. So once you've scanned all your legacy paper, is your scanner going to be outdated? Also, nowadays, you're getting everything digital. I would say all of you are getting files from your architects and contractors now in PDF and hopefully in CAD as well, along with paper, sometimes 2 or 3 sets. So once you receive documents electronically, you're not going to need to scan the paper. So you really need to think hard about if you want to invest in the equipment. The second thing you're going to need if you scan in-house is the time and people. So I could relabel that bullet as resources. Do you have extra staff? There were years ago, we had a client who had a retired maintenance tech come back in and help do some of the organizing and then later some of the scanning, and that helped a lot. But we also have seen some pretty not good stories about bringing in staff. And that brings me to my third bullet, which is the knowledge and the skill. We met with a school district, this is several years ago, and the facility manager was so proud of the fact that all their drawings had been scanned. And what they had done is they bought a large format scanner. It was a big expense for them, but they were able to justify it. And they had students come in. They made it part of their work study. So for an hour or 2 in the afternoon, these high school students would come in and scan drawings. So when we said, well, let's take a look at it, he opened up and showed us his drawings, and they had scanned every single one, thousands of them, in color. And what that meant was the file sizes were huge. They were huge. You couldn't do anything with them. They were several gigabytes, these files, for no reason. And there really is no way to take it from a color scan and dumb it back down to a simple black and white. 99% of the facility drawings just need to be in simple black and white. So the only news we could give this facility manager is he had to rescan all the paper. Poor man, I thought he was going to cry. Now let's talk about outsourcing. There are many, many companies out there that do scanning. Fewer do large format scanning, so you have to do some research to find those. But one thing you need to keep in mind is a scanning vendor will not take the time to make any decision about your drawings. What I mean by that is if you give them duplicates, they're going to scan all the duplicates. If you give them 3, 4, 5 design iterations, they're going to scan them all. So if you decide to outsource, really before you digitize it all, but in particular, if you outsource, make sure you spend the effort on that first organizing step. So let's say you've done that, and now you're ready to bring in a scanning vendor. So a couple of things to keep in mind. First, make sure you check references. Please do this. The quality of output is dependent on them doing their job well. Ask them their process. Any good company that offers a service is going to have a documented process. And if they don't, or if they're not willing to share it with you, that should be a red flag. them things like, how do you know for sure that the task is done well? What are their controls? How are they checking the quality? If they hire people at minimum wage who are just paid to get the paper through the scanner, are they really going to pay attention? And if they don't, how is it caught? It's kind of a hard thing to check to see if a person scanned every sheet in a 220-page set. And we've seen many instances from scanning vendors where they'll skip a sheet. We're not even sure how that happens, but there'll be a sheet missing in the middle. So ask them about the controls, ask them about their quality checks. Ask them how they name a file. We had one company that we met with who had scanned all of their facility drawings, which was great, but their biggest complaint was they couldn't find anything. So when we took a look at their files, they had named them 0001.pdf, 0002.pdf. I mean, it was crazy. I mean, there was absolutely no way anyone could find anything with file names like that. So ask the scanning vendor, how are you going to name the files? How are you going to organize the data? Is there any kind of label you're going to put on the physical drawing? Are they going to give the paper back? Or are you going to shred it? If they give you the paper back, there needs to be some way to label it to let your team know it's been digitized. What we've seen happen before is a scanning vendor will pick up all the drawings, scan them, bring them back and put them in a drawer without a label. And then someone comes in and add more drawings to it, or takes one sheet out and puts it in a different area. And now you have no idea if it was scanned or not. So labeling will help eliminate some confusion, and it may save you from, scanning a document 2 or 3 or 4 times. Ask them about delivery. Are they going to pick up documents? Are they going to bring them back? How are they going to put them back in your archives? Are they going to organize it for you? Are they going to just expect you to have them in boxes or bins when they get there? It's all over the place what companies will do when it comes to delivery, but it's an important thing to check on. And then finally, the fee is important. I actually don't think fee is the most important thing here. I think the process and their credibility outweigh the cost by far. Ask them if you can do a pilot project. Whenever we've done a pilot project with the contractor, we give them our messiest stuff. Let's see how they handle it. So go through and pick out some really messed up, torn up stuff, some water damage. How do they handle it? Do they repair it before they run it through the scanner? And then finally, what kind of guarantee can they offer? Are they willing to make it right if they mess up? If 6 months down the road, you find they skipped some sheets in that drawing set, are they willing to come back to your facility, pick up those 3 sheets, go back and scan them and make it right? So these are things you need to think about when you outsource. All right, the final step is making information accessible. It's interesting to me that so many people we meet with, they think, well, once I organize and scan, I'm good to go. This is probably the most important step. I know I said that about organizing. They're all important. But if you do the first 2 steps without thinking about accessibility, then you've really missed the boat. That whole, I think it was like the 80-20, the first 2 steps might be 80% of the effort, but you're only going to get 20% of the gain from those first 2 steps. Step 3 is what you need to make it 100% system. So you can organize, you can scan everything perfectly, but if you don't think about how people are going to get to the information, then all your effort is really practically for nothing. So there's various ways information can be made accessible. When you have the scanning done, it's going to come back to you in some kind of a storage device. You can think about putting all those files on your server. You may create some kind of server folder structure to help you find information. You can also look at online storage tools. These have become wildly popular over the last 10, 15 years. So there are a lot of different online storage tools. And then finally, you can look at software to help you make information accessible. And when you think about software, there's 2 basic kinds. There's the on-premise software. That's what you buy in a box and install it on your server or your PC. And then there's a web-based solution. So let's talk about these bullets a little bit more. Storage devices. These are very common. We see these all the time: thumb drives, CDs, DVDs. These are not expensive, so that's good. Won't cost you much, but they're also not meant to be permanent storage. Okay. You need to keep that in mind. And these are also not the best way to access your information. It's really a way to transport your information. So make sure when you get data in this format, make sure you put it somewhere that is more permanent. Don't rely on these devices to be your permanent storage. You might be able to put all these CDs or DVDs in a storage room under a locked drawer, and they're like a backup, but you can't even guarantee they're going to be there forever. Think of these as only as a transport device. Okay, a folder structure on the server. Wow. How many of you have seen a folder structure kind of like this? I know you can't see a whole lot of it, but I know you know what I'm talking about. This is how we've stored files for years. But let me ask you something. Have you ever struggled to find something in a folder structure that somebody else created? Heck, have you even struggled to find it in a folder structure that you created? So the image that's shown here is actually better than a lot we see, because you see there's long file names, and that can be helpful. We've seen many folder structures where the file name will be the sheet number for the drawing. Or like I mentioned in that one instance, 001, 002. So a folder structure is a difficult thing to make it work for multiple people, because different people have different needs to find information. For example, a project manager, they're going to need to see the entire project set, or they want to see all the drawings for one building. Where, think about an electrical contractor, they're going to want to see a sheet, or they need to see all the sheets for that room that shows the revisions over time. And that electrical contractor will get frustrated having to wade through all the civil, structural, landscaping drawings. They need information at the sheet level. So figuring out a folder structure that fits many needs is practically impossible. We've seen some folder structures that go from building to project to discipline, or just from building to discipline. And I even think a breakdown like that showing at the discipline level is problematic, because sometimes a drawing crosses disciplines. I use the example of the electrical flushing toilets. Are you going to store that under electrical, or are you going to store it under plumbing? It's kind of both. And the person who's making the folder structure has to make a decision. Where do I put it? Where will people think of looking for it? And if you decide, well, they could look for it under either folder, then you might make a copy of it, one in electrical, one in plumbing. Well, now you've got another problem. You've got a copy of a document, two different places. Now, what happens when you need to make a revision? Will someone automatically know to go find it in that other location? So you get the idea. I'm sure all of you have experienced frustrations with the folder structure. So let's talk about online storage. There are many. I'm tossing out here some of the most common. And, like with everything else, there are pros and cons. One of the pros is being web-based means it's accessible 24/7. It also means that you can get to your information from anywhere. So you can log in when you're home or traveling or at the site. You don't have to be in one specific place on a company computer, for example. Another pro is these online storage companies make it fairly easy to share files. You type in someone's email address, you say if you want them to view only or edit a file. So it's fairly easy to share. And the information is backed up. So that's really good. Having your information backed up is a very important thing. So those are all pros of an online storage system or software. All right, some of the drawbacks. Typically, you still have to create a folder structure. We just talked about all the downsides to a folder structure. Often, they don't have a lot of traceability features with them. You can't always tell if someone logged in, if they actually looked at a document or not. there aren't very many controls with these. I mean, you can say view only or edit, but they could download a document. I don't know, they vary based on the solution. And then often there's not a lot of flexibility with these systems. They're pretty much as you see them. They're just a way to put all your information. So online storage systems definitely have their place in the world, but it may not be the best place for your critical facility drawings. So now let's talk about document management software. Like I mentioned, you need to make a choice. Do you want it on your server versus a cloud-based? Now, AerieHub is a cloud-based document management software, so I'm definitely biased. I think a cloud-based solution has many advantages, just like the online storage has advantages. A server-based solution limits you, and one of the ways it limits you is you're not able to share information easily with architects and contractors, because often the server-based software, you need to have a login to the company server to get to the information. Most important things is to think about who the software is designed for. Who is the audience of this software? It's important to find software that's designed for facility maintenance. Most of the document management software you find out there is geared towards small format documents like purchasing departments, HR, quality, but you're looking for software that is unique to facility management. You want a software that can handle large format documents easily. You want a software that's designed with your end user in mind, which would be the maintenance techs and the engineers when they're in the field. So think about that when you're looking at software. I think another important thing is to look at credibility of the company. The reason I even bring this up, there are a lot of companies out there that start and promise the moon, but it's really important to find software that's proven itself. You need to find software that has a history, a track record, satisfied customers. So look at all those things to make sure the software and the company that provides it is a credible company. Flexibility to me is important. It may not be important to everyone. You may think that your facility can fit into a standard box and you're okay with that. Sometimes you'll start that way. You'll start with something that's very basic and standard, but then as you get into it, you go, wow, I really wish it would do this or this. Check, find out, can the software be customized to meet your needs? And then, of course, security is important. Make sure you check that. Make sure you look into who else uses this software. Make sure the company keeps your information secure or as much as they can. And then ease of use, that kind of goes along with audience. I probably should have put the two of them together. My feeling is that most software is designed for people who sit in front of a computer all the time, because developers sit in front of computers. But you need to make sure your software is designed with your people in mind. At Aerie, we sometimes say, and please don't take this the wrong way, does it pass the fat thumb test? And what we mean by that is people who are used to being in the field using their hands. They could be on a small device. Are the buttons large enough where even a fat finger can hit the right one easily? So make sure that whatever software you're looking to bring in is intuitive. If it's difficult to use, if it's complicated, if there's a lot of things happening on the screen at one time, I guarantee you the people in the field are not going to use it. You want to make sure that it's designed for them and it's intuitive and easy for them to use. And then support. I feel like support is almost going away in modern days. And I think it is probably one of the most important things. It's the software you're looking at bringing in. Is it developed in India? Are the developers in India? Are you able to talk with someone who can help you customize it, help you use it more efficiently? So I think support is an important component. All right, there's several options when it comes to document management. So let's talk about software. Let's talk a little bit about those. We don't need to spend a lot of time on it. One, you're going to save space if you have a digital document management software, because all those flat files, all those papers, guess what? These can be rolled up and put in a box. Often at Aerie, we deliver drawings back in a 6x6 by 36-inch long box. We put a QR code label on the end of the box, and that box can be put in a warehouse. So guess what? You still have your paper, but you walk up to it with your phone or your tablet and you scan the QR code. Now you can get to your drawings. So you can save a lot of space by repurposing your archives room and putting the physical paper somewhere else. You're going to save a lot of time if you don't have to weed through paper. We've already gone through all that. If the software helps you find information quickly and easily, you just reduce some of your risk. You'll be able to collaborate more if you have people using the same software. You can be looking at the same document, you can communicate using the software. So a lot of advantages there. You're going to improve your safety, right? Because it's going to allow you to find information quickly. Some of the cons, there's drawbacks to anything. So finding the right software takes time, right? You've got to spend time talking with people. You've got to sit through demos. The only thing I can say here is ask your peers, find out what your colleagues are using. What do they like? What do they don't like? You know, conferences and trade shows are a great place to get information about companies that offer services. So go to conferences, talk to people, find out which one is a good software and that's helping others. Of course, cost, you know, you can probably find some document management software for free online, but you know the old saying, you get what you pay for. So don't expect that a good software is going to be cheap. You're going to have to spend something for it, right? Look at how the company structures their fees. Some companies sell you the software once. That's typically the software that goes on your server. The more modern approach is to create a subscription model. So in a subscription model, often there's some cost to get everything set up, right? Especially if it's software that can be customized. And then there's an ongoing fee. Think of it like your cell phone fee. So you're going to pay a monthly or annual fee just to have access to the software. And then, of course, you're going to have to train people. Everyone's used to paper already. But let me tell you, if you're hiring people that are in their 20s or 30s, they're expecting information to be digital. So the training may not be as big a deal as you think. We feel our software at Aerie is so intuitive that it really doesn't need training, but training is important, and some software will require more training than others, for sure. And then finally, one of the cons of software is you really need to think about having a champion inside your company. A champion is someone who can help with software implementation. A champion is someone who can answer questions. And the thing about this software, this information you're storing in your document management software, I call it living information. I think buildings are living things. So a champion will help make sure that the software stays current, meaning new information is uploaded as you get it. Because having this information current, that's what makes your entire, we call it an e-library, makes it credible. If you let your information go stale and you have no one that helps to keep it updated, then people are going to stop using it. All right, next slide. Shamelessly, I'm going to tell you a little bit about AerieHub. Some of you may already know about AerieHub, but just to brag a little, our software is very credible, I feel. And some of the reasons that make it credible is we have a very diverse client base. We have clients that have hundreds and hundreds of facilities, all the way to clients with only one building. We have schools and hospitals and manufacturing and private sector, you know, just government, you name it. Yeah, we do work with the federal government. So I think that by itself makes AerieHub credible, because if any of you have ever tried to work with the federal government, there are a lot of hurdles you have to cross. AerieHub is patented. We received our patent in early 2022, which is a pretty big deal for software, and we're really proud of that. So AerieHub software, we like to say it's flexible. We often will show you a standard approach, but if you come to us and say, wow, Lori, I don't think of my buildings this way, I think of them this way, AerieHub has the ability to be customized, so it works for you. And when you can customize it like that, it makes adoption so much easier. We have support We have a technical team here to support you. We have a ticketing system in place, so you'll never feel like you're left hanging. And we feel our software is secure. We put a lot of time and resources and money into making sure our software is secure. Web-based means it's accessible. It's, anytime you can get to your information, and it will improve your safety for all the reasons we've said before. It helps you with collaboration, improves your communication. But I think most importantly, it helps you have peace of mind that your information is safe. It's backed up, you can get to it, you have it when you need it. So Aerie Engineering developed the software AerieHub. And some of the things that Aerie Engineering does is we help you get all your information into the software. So we have a team of experts to go in and take your documents and weed out all that unnecessary stuff. We repair drawings, we digitize, we load it in AerieHub. You can trust Aerie Engineering. We've been doing it for more than 24 years. We have trained staff, we have CAD people, we have technical specialists, and we have library managers. Remember when I talked about keeping your library current? So that's what your library managers can help you with. So many facilities use AerieHub. We've won multiple awards, and like I mentioned, we were patented. We just think our software is great. So we would love for you to consider that as you think about your transition to digital. So last slide, these are a couple of screenshots of our software. There's several different components to it, and I'm sure Barb would be more than happy to show you the software in more detail. But I hope you found this presentation helpful. My hope is that you learned a couple of things, maybe that you didn't know before, maybe you already knew them. Maybe you took some notes. That would be great. So Barb, now I think we'll open it up for some Q&A. You're muted, Barb.
Thank you. Everybody likes me to be muted, so that wasn't a bad thing. But anyway, yes, thank you, Lauren. We appreciate that very much. And you're allowing all of our attendees being on this interview, on this lunch and learn. And we did get a few questions. So one of them was, I've gotten along fine this far using paper drawings. So why should I put in all the effort to go digital?
That's a good question. And we get that a fair bit. Well, you know, the things I said in the PowerPoint, I'll just reiterate. It saves you money. Okay. It improves communication. It improves safety, reduce risk. I mean, you really need to make your information accessible to the people who need it. Think about facility information as a tool in someone's toolbox. Okay. You wouldn't send a maintenance tech out to repair something without tools and wrenches and screwdrivers. Well, you shouldn't send them out there without information as well. And then, you know, another reason you need to think about going digital now is your workforce is changing. Our workforce is getting younger, and people who are in the workforce today grew up with technology. So when you bring in this very talented new maintenance tech or engineer and you walk and show them your archives room with all the paper, they're going to look at you like you've got two heads. So it's important to take the step. I'm not saying that it's a painless step, but it needs to happen. It's not a matter of if you're going to digital, it's a matter of when you're going to do it.
Yep. And you kind of already answered this, but one of our questions was, shouldn't I just buy a scanner and do it myself?
Yeah, you know, I'm not a fan of that. I really think it's going to be a piece of machinery that sits there and you're going to hang your clothes on it like that treadmill. Yeah, I think there are just very few instances where that makes sense. I think you really need to explore the outsourcing option first. And again, think of the end result is not all about the dollars it's costing you when you outsource it. You really need to look at the outcome. And do you get your documents scanned in a good way? We had one client, a school district, who they decided to have a high school student, again, do all the scanning. And this young woman was able to spend an entire semester, like 4 hours a day scanning. And she did all the scanning. She took all the paper. This school district had the drawings organized by school all around the room on these wooden shelves. It was really cool. And she took down all the paper and scanned everything. And as she scanned it, she sat the paper on a wooden pallet and just stacked it up. And we came in after all this work was done, and they said, we can't find anything in how she scanned it because she didn't have any consistent naming convention. But they never gave her any instruction on how to do it. And then she had taken all the drawings out of their cubbies and they were piled up. And Barb, that pallet was probably about 3.5 feet high, stacked with paper, just to give you a visual. Yeah. So anyway, there's a lot of risk to doing it in-house. So take it to the professionals, let them do it, and let them do it well.
Another question that just came in says, does AerieHub allow management of AutoCAD drawings as well as scanned document archiving?
Great question. Yes, Aerie Engineering has CAD specialists. What we don't do is we don't do design. So we're not design people, we're not architects, but what we can do is help you manage your CAD files, meaning we can help keep your CAD files current. What a lot of our clients use us for is we'll take original construction drawings and then 2 or 3 or 4 projects that have happened, renovation projects. We'll take all that information and create a current, we call it a base plan or a master plan drawing. And then each time you have a project, a renovation project, all you have to do is upload those project drawings into AerieHub, and that triggers our CAD department to go in and pull your CAD file, update it, and then re-upload it into AerieHub. So we feel that's actually a very valuable service. And over the years, that's something our clients have leaned on us more and more. It feels like a lot of facilities are losing their CAD people. So we offer that service as well.
So if they already have an in-house staff person managing the AutoCAD files, they can manage it themselves with our software. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely. We work really well with CAD people and even with archivists, if you have an archivist. Not many companies still have an archivist, but every now and then we'll meet with someone who does CAD work and archive management. We actually love that kind of situation because that can be our champion. So you can think about Aerie Engineering as being the outsourced CAD person and archivist when your person gets behind or gets overwhelmed. We can help them stay on task.
Right. So what if they've scanned these documents? How do they edit them?
You know, it again, that depends on the software they choose. Now, typically you scan to a PDF. And so even Adobe allows you to edit, do some editing in PDF. If you have a CAD person, they can bring that into AutoCAD and actually draw on top of the PDF. So there are many ways to do it. If you're thinking about AerieHub, then we offer tools for editing the PDF document in AerieHub as well and saving it as a marked up version that you can share with others. So that question is a little bit hard to answer, Barb. It really depends on the software, but right. You guys should ask that when you're talking with other software companies.
Sure. And I think we've got time for one more question. I think it's important. How secure is an online storage system?
Oh man, what a great question. The answer is it depends. So as you're looking at software companies, if it's not one you've ever heard of, you definitely need to do your homework. I know at AerieHub, we've been working towards becoming FedRAMP certified, and that may not mean anything to people who aren't in the federal government, but there are protocol. There's a WASP top 10 that says you have to do these things to make sure your software is secure. So when you're looking at other software, maybe ask the questions about their controls, their processes and procedures, who has access to the information. Find out what the company has already built into their software to make it secure. These are really good questions, and don't just assume every software you look at is going to be secure.
Right. Well, that puts us right at our time. We are so thankful that you joined us today, and you are welcome to reach out to me. I'm happy to show you in more detail what Aerie can provide and how our product we think is superior to everything else out on the market. But we do appreciate you joining us today and some great questions. Thanks, guys, for sending us those great questions. And hopefully you'll join us again in the future with our next Lunch and Learn. And you folks have a wonderful afternoon.